Hi, this is Sue for Parkies and Me, my journey with Parkinson's. Today I thought we'd talk about discussing the future. One of the reasons why I felt that it was important was I worked for 11 years as a social worker, and during that time I came across a lot of people with multiple sclerosis, and we had many people that came in that had had MS for 15, 20 years. And I was really surprised when I spoke to the carer or the husband or wife who was supporting the person with MS that they had never thought to discuss the future. And here they were in hospital on the brink of having to go into residential care because things had got too tough. And I was really surprised by that. I had thought that at some stage during that journey with MS that one of them would have said, hey, we need to talk about the future. And I think some people find that too difficult to have that conversation. And I get that. But when a person has a condition that is only going to worsen, and we know that it's going to worsen, and the ultimate thing is that they will need to go into residential care, my view on that is it's important to acknowledge that and to have that conversation so that in the future, when or if that has to happen, at least they have started to have that conversation between them. So I have Parkinson's, and this is entering my 5th year since diagnosis. And I discussed the future with my husband very early on in my journey. And he was very, very reluctant to have that conversation with me and said it was far too soon, that it was far too far in the future for us to discuss it now. And what I said to him was, what I want you to know is right here, right now, while I am of sound mind, I want you to know that if it becomes unsafe for me or unsafe for you, for me to stay home with you, that it's okay for me to go into residential care. And he objected to this, saying, well, it may never happen. And I said, yes, it may never happen, but if it does, I want you to know that it's okay. I'm okay if you need to do this to keep me safe and to keep you safe. And I've also had the discussion with my children. I have a son and a daughter, and I said to them that I'd had the conversation and that I had told my husband, who is not their father, that it was okay in the future if I needed to go into care. Now, I'm fully aware of how stubborn I can be. I'm fully aware that in the future, I may not recognise that this needs to happen. I may not recognise that I need to go into residential care. And at that crucial point, I may say I do not want to go. But at that time, cognitively, I may not be in a position to fully realise how difficult it might be for my husband, how unsafe it's become. And so I was giving him my consent now, while I can be logical and sensible and agree to that happening. So I said to him, whatever happens in the future, when the time comes, when it needs to happen, when I need to go into residential care, don't listen to me when I say I'm not going. That's my voice at the time when I'm not fully aware, perhaps, of how bad things have got. The sensible me right now is agreeing, and that's the important thing. Sometimes when a person is caring for somebody, as a husband or wife, and has very much become the carer, the person with the condition, it's obvious they've got things going on with their health. Physically and mentally, it becomes really obvious. But for the person who is caring for that person with Parkinson's disease, in our case, who looks at what is happening for the husband or the wife or the carer, in my case, my husband, who looks out for him? I ask this question because often it has been in my experience that it is the person in the role of carer who sometimes has a major health event and sometimes even dies because they have put that other person's needs first. They hardly have gone to the doctor. They've not monitored their own health. They've put all their energy, all their thoughts into the person with Parkinson's. And as a consequence, their health can suffer. And I don't want my husband to suffer a huge health event because of my health issues. when I was married to my children's father, his grandparents were still alive, and Poppy was a really little man, and his wife wasn't much bigger, but she was very, very much needing him to be the carer. They refused to have help in the home, and Poppy did everything for his wife, and she was so frail, but he managed to look after her really well, until the time we received a phone call that Poppy had had a massive heart attack and passed away. Now, none of us expected that. Nana, with all her frailty, we expected her to go first. But she went into residential care, and I think she lasted another couple of years, well beyond what any of us would have thought she would have been able to do. So it's important, I feel, to discuss the future. I worked with another colleague who also had a similar diagnosis, and she was diagnosed around the time, and we used to catch up from time to time. And when she first told me that she had Parkinson's as well, it was about 2 years into my diagnosis and also 2 years into hers. And she said, I have not told my children yet, my adult children. And I said, why is that? And she said, because they have their lives, they have their stresses, and I don't want to add to it. She said, I'll tell them eventually, but not just now. And I thought of my own journey with my parents with Parkinson's. And I remember Mum telling me about Dad having Parkinson's. But after he passed on, I came down for a visit, and I went out to the clothesline with her, and she was hanging out the washing. Now, my mum never drank, so what came next was very much a joke between us. She reached out to pick up a peg and hang something on the line, and as she did so, I said, oh, you got the DTs, Mum, you've been drinking too much. And I laughed, but she didn't, and she said, oh, I hope you wouldn't notice I've got Parkinson's. So I don't know whether Mum would have ever told me that she had Parkinson's if I hadn't caught her out, as it were, hanging out the washing. But now that I knew that I could help her and support her with her journey through Parkinson's, and so I did. So we all have our own personal view on discussing the future, I'm sure. But I would ask you to consider the lives of those who love you, who may very much want to support you. And I think most families, most children, most adult children would want to support their parents through something like Parkinson's. Please think about telling them as soon as possible. Please think about discussing the future, because it will come one day that decision has to be made. And doing it in a stressful situation when you've entered hospital and can't come home again would be difficult. This is not an easy road to ride, but with support we can manage. This has been Sue for Parkies and Me, My Journey with Parkinson's. Kia kaha, be strong, be brave, be you.